right, guys, welcome back to Secrets of the Fallen. We've got
back to the portal.
Back to the portal. We've got a good episode for y'all today. It's going to be more of like an open forum. We're just going to talk about all the Epstein Files, obviously. That's a big news story today. Also, what's going on in the Middle East and stuff like that. But today's different than all the other ones. We got a guest. Archie, you want to introduce our friend?
Absolutely. So this is Mr. Nate Webb, just a dear. I won't call him a friend. I'll call him a family member.
Right on.
Him and his wife have been in my family for quite a while, and his wife Heidi, her dad and my dad used to do ministry together, and so me and Heidi kind of grew up, and then she dated and married this fella, so I got a twofer. I got a 2-for-1 deal, and they have 2 beautiful daughters and just an awesome family. But Nate, why don't you go ahead and give a little bio on yourself? And
So you know my name, Nate Webb, and I am a serial entrepreneur. So I got multiple businesses. I'm all about business. I'm in the entertainment industry. You can kind of see by a lot of the stuff I got in the back of my studio here. You know, light it up a little bit crazy. We get a little bit more fun with the entertainment side of it. Some of the projects that are in the back there are some of the things that we've done together as a family. In fact, this little demon head guy right here, his name is Usti, and he was a part of a Star Trek episode that was Star Trek Continues. You can find that on YouTube. This was in episode 6. And then here's a Ghostbusters pack. We didn't really do any Ghostbusters stuff, but we used to have a monster museum, and that was really fun. And we had a lot of the Ghostbusters coming out to that, seeing some of the monsters we had in the museum. We had a Slimer at one point. But yeah, just as a serial entrepreneur, I've been into every kind of business that you can imagine. If I've done it, or if you've heard of it, I've probably done it, and I've either succeeded or failed at it. So that's kind of the background. Yeah. So Heidi, my wife, and I, when we first met, she was touring with her dad's production company, and they were going around the country doing entertainment stuff, and I was looking for a job in the industry. And so I followed her, nice little hot chick, right? So I was like, hey, right on. This is the girl I'm after. And she knows what I'm talking about when I talk nerdy. So that was really cool. And I did say nerdy, right? But yeah, so it was really cool because we could get kind of, off into the lands of doing tech stuff together. And it was really fun. And we toured for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years, something like that, before we started doing our own business. So it's pretty fun. And, in the last 4 or 5 years, probably since COVID, it's really kind of hyper-focused me into all of this, what would be considered, I guess, conspiracy theories and going down rabbit holes and all kinds of stuff. And I've kind of always done that my entire life, but maybe didn't really get serious with it until maybe the last 5 or 6 years. And what's really funny about it is all of this actually led me closer to Jesus, frankly. So I've found that pretty much every conspiracy theory that's out there, if you really follow the true path, it's going to lead you to Jesus. And that's really kind of fun, in fact, because you find so much of the answers in what Jesus did when he was here, and then what Paul talked about, kind of reminding everybody about when he was here too. And so as a follower of Jesus, that's my proclamation. I do proclaim myself to be a Christian and a follower of Jesus, and I want to seek after his truth. And I think all the evils of the world that we go through are what this fallen planet that we live on, secrets of the fallen, right? This is what we're here about. And I think Jesus is the answer to that. So if you really want to know one of the secrets, in my opinion, it's Jesus is the answer to all of these things that we live through the fallen.
Yeah. And one of the things that you left out is you and I form a kinship because we're both preachers' kids.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I don't think you grow up as a preacher's kid and not be a conspiracy theorist and a little bit out there.
100%.
No doubt.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right. Well, Brandon, take us away. What are we going to talk about, brother?
So today I figured we'd kind of go along now that we have another drop of the Epstein Files. And as you unwrap that, just concoction of wildness,
for sure,
it's just, how deep does that well go,
right?
And the branches that come off of it makes a lot of sense as far as some of the questions that I had, as far as like, what is the deal with Israel as far as a relationship, like politically, in today's time, and also biblically. Because I mean, growing up, we were always told as Christians that you support Israel no matter what. That's God's chosen people, and as a Christian, I've always said, yeah, okay, kind of thing. Like, but this whole thing has really kind of made me think more about why is that narrative pushed so hard on us, as far as that goes. Because I mean, if you look at the Bible, I mean, it says, "Do not put trust in man, put trust in the Lord." You don't blindly. It doesn't say blindly follow any person or any human being.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I've spoken recently and have said, Zionism is actually nation worship. It's worship of a nation, and which is totally forbidden for what we read in the Bible.
Right.
So it goes in direct contrast of what Jesus spoke of, and when we see that, because right now where I'm at in my walk, I've done, because I was a Zionist for many years. I grew up in the Southern Baptist faith. I'm now I would consider myself probably what would you say? I'm a Christian, but I don't fall under any denomination, because I believe denomination is man-made. So when I was searching, because I saw this anti-Semitism, I saw the things with Epstein possibly being a Mossad agent working with Israel, and I'm like, God, where does Israel fall into all this? Who is true Israel? And when you look in the scripture, especially in Romans 11, Paul breaks it down of what Israel is, because he gives the analogy of the wild olive tree where Jesus is the root, and Gentiles who are believers are grafted in, but Jews who are not believers are plucked out. But the Jews that do believe,
off. Yeah.
Yes, correct, broken off. But Paul also reminds the Gentiles, do not be haughty, do not be prideful, because God always makes a way for his people. So those Jews that have been plucked out, there's still a way for them as long as they accept Jesus. Jesus is the root of the tree. So that's kind of where it lies.
And that was kind of my my internal view on everything, because as the more I've thought about it, it's okay, Jesus is the way, the light. Nobody gets to the Father except through him. Well, the Jews don't worship Jesus. I'm like, okay, well, how's that? And then it's always been answered, well, they're the chosen ones. Okay, well, what does that make me?
Now they bypass, right?
Does that make me like some type of like adopted kid into a family with an only child?
You're a stepchild, Brandon. You're the redhead
or a stepchild, or a nephew who just kind of adopted into this family or something.
Right.
And when I believe in Jesus, like how is one put above the other? And then you start thinking about, well, no man is above any other man. We're all sinners. So why do they feel like they're the chosen ones? And if you just start, things don't line up. And like you said before, a lot of this research and stuff, because I mean, I started researching, as you can see, Bigfoot, and doing research through that because I just thought it was cool back in was it 2016? I think I started looking into that, and then that gets you down a cryptid path. If you go down a cryptid path, then you go through, you find your way back to the Bible and the history of everything. And and I think a biggest problem, not only the fact that there's 93 different denominations of Christianity, which is insane. It's like, hey, I mean, divide and conquer has been the oldest war strategy in history. How do you keep Christians that check, okay, make 93 different denominations. That's how you do it.
Right. Yep.
And then
Get them distracted with stupid things.
yeah, and tell them that, hey, if you play music, you're not going to heaven, or if you
You're right.
wear blue jeans on Sunday, you're not going to heaven.
Right.
Keep them arguing about that, and then we don't have to hear from them, kind of thing.
Right.
And Jesus said that that Christ is the church, and it's just you just look at it and you're like, okay, well now that makes sense why there's 93 different denominations, because it all boils down to we are in a battle between goodness and evil. And you're either on the side of good or you're either on the side of evil.
Right.
And we're living in a world where evil wins when good men do nothing.
Right. Well, I know in the Epstein files, all these files that are dropping. So I know that there's been a couple of releases, right? So there was supposed to be a bunch of releases back last month, maybe the month before. Now there's some that just recently dropped here in the last week or so, right? Do we know if there's supposed to be any additional stuff that's supposed to be coming out here in the next subsequent months or something? Do we know anything?
Well, that's what I was just watching there. So Massey and here's what I don't get. I don't get where, like, I don't get where our government. I mean, obviously, our government is compromised.
Right.
I mean, it's blatant. And as somebody who voted for America First, like, it was very, very disheartening once you see what Cash Patel says and Jan Bongino, who I was a big follower of Dan Bongino, and then just how he completely folded. Like, I did not see that coming.
Well,
Right.
and me and Nate discussed this the other night. I think what happens is these guys got big plans, but then once they get into government and they see that who's pulling the strings, it's like, wow, like this thing is all a smoke and mirrors puppet show.
Right,
Yeah,
but the thing with Cash and Dan is they've been there before. Like, it's not a brand new room to them. They know how things are done. I mean, Dan Bongino worked for the Intel committee,
well, he worked for the Secret Service, but
Secret Service. I mean,
working for the Secret Service and then being in, the FBI and
assistant director of FBI is, I think, a little different.
It's way different.
That's kind of my point on it. I think that both of those guys got in there. They were both hotheads before we moved in. They had intentions of going in there and saying, hey, we're going to take some stuff. And they were ready to do it. And I think, everybody that voted for Trump and voted for America First and voted for MAGA, if you will, whatever you want to call it, I think that these guys were the champions that were going to go in there and take some names and kick some butt, right? And I think that's what they went in and did. But I think sometimes when you stumble into a room that maybe you've never been in before and you're like, yeah, we're going to take this on, and you come walking in there and you see baby killers and you see people eating baby intestines and you see stuff that you didn't ever even dream or think of, you're like, whoa, the world is darker than even I could have ever imagined.
Absolutely.
And so I think that is going to break somebody. I don't care how hardened you are. If you're the most hardened battle Rambo character that ever existed, and you walk in, you watch Rambo folded under that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't really think that it's a fault to these guys that they stumbled into literally what's hell on earth and saw that, probably unredacted entirely and could not believe what they were stepping into, that was actually a thing. And, that kind of stuff begins to shock people, begins to start doing stuff. And then when other people that you're around are like, oh, it's okay, it's normalized. Oh, yeah, that's not really what it really happened. And you start getting gaslighted by lefties and liberals, conservative, and anybody else that's been in government for more than 20 years. They've all just been covering it up. They've all been making it normalized. They've been all, profiting off of it, probably through an NGO of some type, right?
Mhm.
So that's where I think that the disgusting side of it gets, is that every one of these people that are involved in government have some type of skin in the game. And it's not their own personal skin or risk. It's that they're setting up some kind of NGO, some type of structure, some type of way that they're participating in and even profiting off of, be it trafficking kids for cannibalism, trafficking kids for sexual favors, trafficking other people through systems. You know, Colorado just is looking to pass a law to legalize prostitution full, no stop, like 100% of it. Where does that come from? That comes from these people that are so sick and disgusting that they want to set up this criminal racket, call it, oh, it's the oldest profession. There's people that, should be able to make money and be able to be free to make money however they want. Yeah, but that is a cover for all of this disgusting trafficking systems that we see, these underground businesses that are trafficking kids, drugs, and every other thing you can imagine, and probably 10 times further than you even have an imagination for.
Right.
So
and honestly, to be very literal about it, I don't even think these people at the top, and this, I don't know how crazy this sounds to you, but I don't think they're people. I think that they are manifestations of either fallen angels or demonic entities.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And Jeffrey Epstein is, I think he is. I don't think he is a flesh and blood human being fully.
Right.
I think at the very least he's like perfectly possessed, where the person agrees, it goes willing into possession.
He's a Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh was human until he did satanic sex magic to turn himself into a hybrid.
Right.
So,
And then you have these spirits that hold dominion over here. And I think like you said, the Jezebel spirit, Lilith, whatever you want to call it, I think is living alive and well in the United States, because you have, and it's been slowly coming into normality. First, you get Instagram going, you get pictures, you get people making a living off of posting pictures of themselves in a bra and underwear, and then that moves to this OnlyFans thing that's gone absolutely nuts.
Yep, making tons of money doing it, right? Yeah.
And then you've taken it from the streets into a webcam,
right?
And then you have these people making millions of dollars a month off of it,
right?
And it's completely destroying not only men, it's destroying society as a whole with completely just degenerate behavior. And then you have, I was listening to Dark Waters. Do you know who Dark Waters is?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've watched him though. No.
So he was talking about the Gilgamesh spirit. So the spirit of Gilgamesh is one of political corruption. And I mean, what two things are living alive and well in America right now? I mean, there's pretty much the topic of just about everything is political corruption and greed, and sexual degeneracy. Whether that's, I mean, they tried to pass a term, like they tried to make a political term, minor attractive people.
Right.
Like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Like, that's how brazen that they are. I don't know if they're on a time crunch, because here my theory is, I don't think Trump was supposed to win 2016. I think Hillary was supposed to win, and I think that they're 4 years behind schedule, and they're trying to get back on track. So now they're playing a little fast and loose and getting a little more brazen, and then they just showed their hand, and now you got people waking up.
Yeah, and that I think you pointed out a couple things in there that are really truths that need to be need for Christians to wake up to. People that are listening to this kind of stuff need to wake up to a couple of things. One is that you talked about dominion, spirits having dominion. Spirits don't get dominion unless the humans give it to them. So
Right.
no spirit gets into my house unless I open a door. Then if I go jump on my laptop and open a door into pornography, that spirit's like, great, coming right on in, no problem. And I had those problems when I was a kid. I had those problems well into my marriage. And so I had to kill that. And it was on me to kill it, on me to take back my dominion of my palace, my throne, my area, my house, my family, and everything else around that. And I think those spirits are where you do see demonic spirits incarnate. We talk about all of the cryptids and those kinds of things, and those can be demons incarnate, spirits incarnate, whatever that incarnate manifestation is. But I think if you want to know where the incarnate manifestations of spirits actually really are more than anywhere else in our culture right now, it's in pornography. Because
100%.
you're seeing stuff happening in those things, and there's enough of it rolling around in my head that is not human. It's not human. The kind of stuff that they do in that is not human. People are not built that way. And all of that stuff, if a demon can like outscale its size and do all kinds of things and make everybody that ever watched it be like, oh, now all the guys are like, well, I'm not good enough. And all the girls are like, I'm not good enough. What do you think that spirit's all about? And it can hit you in that core right there. That's I think where you don't have to go search it in the wild woods for looking for Bigfoot. You just turn on a porn and you're going to see demons incarnate right there. And
Absolutely.
they love it. And you are worshiping them. And they are taking you off into the pit of hell. So porn isn't just like, oh, it's an addiction and I got a problem. No, you are demon worship. You are into the full things of this Gilgamesh spirit, whether
Absolutely.
whether it be the spirit of Jezebel or Gilgamesh. Those two people dived into this thing to where I don't know that they were naturally human. As you said, they became a hybrid demon spirit human. And demons can possess humans. I've seen it personally. I've seen it, directly right in front of me. I've prayed for those types of people and saw the demons cast out. So to me, I've been there and I've seen it, and it is real. But I think dominion is only given by humans. God gave us dominion. And when God gave Adam and Eve the dominion, Adam turned those keys over to Satan for a time. And he had those. So he went out and began to establish his kingdoms in the earth. That was the kingdoms of money and entertainment and the oldest profession in the world. And it was all these things that he began to establish. He had that head start on it. And then when Cain killed Abel, it took a while for Adam to recreate a children of one of the kids of God again. So there was a generation or two that passed before the generation of God could catch up to the people that were already building Satan's kingdoms on this earth. But what happened when Jesus came and was crucified, he took those keys back. He went clear down to hell, right straight up to Satan's face, and ripped him out of his hands, ripped him off around from his neck, wherever he was holding him, took him right back and said, I now have the dominion keys of this, and I'm going to give it to my kids, the ones that believe in me, the ones that follow me and obey my directives. So if any Christian is out there saying, oh, I'm being tormented by a spirit, you probably gave him a foothold. You probably
You gave him a doorway.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form, you left open a doorway.
Absolutely.
And like you said, pornography is a portal.
Absolutely.
And not only when you open that door to your house, it's not just coming after you. It's coming after and
everything.
Now as a husband,
you my kids. Because of my problem, they attack my kids. Guarantee you. Absolutely.
Now they can come after that doorway's open, and you better believe that they're trying to cram as many of them through that door as you can.
Oh yeah, yep.
Sure.
And
I heard the other day I was listening to an analyst that said that if you watch pornography, 100% you are contributing to human trafficking. 100%.
Yes.
Across the board, no matter if it's soft porn, hard, whatever, you
Yep.
are contributing to human trafficking.
Yep. And the links are really intense. And these go back to Epstein. They actually go back to Zionist Israel. Zionist Israel, there's a Zionist Israeli business owner that owns OnlyFans.
Mhm. That's right.
So these people are putting this stuff in place to distract. Satan has his ways. He's been around for 6,000 years setting up traps for humanity. And he's been doing this longer than any human that's been around. So we can sit here and speculate about his traps. We can sit here and try to, come up with ways to get people out of it. But man, he's been at it for 6,000 years. He knows the Bible in and out better than any of us. I could read this thing from here until Jesus comes back, and I'm not going to know it as good as Satan knows it. And so when he comes back and espouses that back through false doctrines, for misinterpretations, through antichrist spirits, when he convinces Christians to eat at McDonald's, which was a theory which I don't know if it's actually been fully debunked or just kind of blown off, that human DNA shows up in the burgers at McDonald's, right?
No, a laboratory did a third-party study, and human remains were found in their burgers. I mean, that's common knowledge.
Yeah,
and that goes back through like where are all the dead people going?
Because I used to eat McDonald's.
right.
I'm like, and that's where fasting comes in, because I never understood fasting. I never understood why fast. Why is not eating going to help bring me closer to God? Well, you're not just not eating. It's a detox.
Yes,
you're detoxing literally all that out of you.
Yeah,
when you're fasting, and that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
and like you said before, as you do these, like, I think the one thing that the church, I really wish, and when I say the church, I'm talking about all denominations. I'm talking about the casual Sunday Christian goer that goes for a good motivational speech, and then I'm headed back to, I'm going to go eat Chili's with my family and then go home and watch football or something. That we are in the middle of spiritual warfare like we have never seen before, as far as any generation that I can imagine before me. And it's manifesting blatant, like, out there for the world to see. It's not hiding anymore. It's not subliminally trying to do things. It is doing things. And this Epstein thing is just a peek behind the veil of what spiritual warfare looks like on Earth.
Yeah.
And this is just scratching the surface. It's scratching. We still, if we knew everything that's redacted in those files, it would probably make us throw up. It's so bad.
I mean, the first rollout was just like, I'd have quit. Because I went through the files myself, because I didn't want to. I didn't want to go through like I'm gonna watch a YouTube video and see what they saw, kind of thing.
Right.
I'm gonna go through it myself. So I got through, I don't know how many, because a lot of it is nothing. It's 3 million files, and a lot of it's nothing. But they did add a thing where you can search things, so you can search through and filter out files and stuff. But I wasn't surprised. That was a terrible thing. I wasn't surprised about it, because we know, like, it's not anything new. It's not anything new that the enemy hasn't done before.
Right.
It's the same game plan that he's had since the beginning.
Yeah.
It's the same rituals, the same demons, the same people, the same characters, all rebranded into a more nuanced, like, delivery to the people. Something that's, because Satan never says, "Hey, I'm Satan." He brings himself to people in a more acceptable way.
Yeah, as an angel of light. He literally says that.
Light.
Yeah.
and people just we've got to wake up.
Yeah.
Especially my generation. My generation, I'm a millennial, and I've had more, and I think the millennials are waking up because like when me and Kesley, we went to a wedding not too long ago, and of course we got started on the topic of Bigfoot because one of the people there was like, "Hey, did you know this guy's got a Bigfoot podcast kind of thing?" And everybody was like, "Oh, no way!" Kind of like started the whole conversation, and then
That's cool.
it was like me and like 7 other guys and husbands and stuff. We sat there and talked for like 2 hours, and we got like everybody is asking these questions, whether they want to ask it on a podcast or they're asking it to themselves as they're driving in the car. But it's not. It's on everybody's mind.
Yeah,
it's not.
Sure.
It's not as crazy as the mainstream narrative wants you to think you're being.
Right. Exactly.
It's really going on. Yeah,
there was a popular thing a few years back. Everybody was talking about the fall of the Roman Empire. That was a big thing for Gen Xers. A lot of guys were starting to really realize, hey, what's going on? And so we were trying to look at correlations between the fall of the Roman Empire and kind of the times that we're living in today, because we were seeing very similar tracks. You know, as the Roman Empire fell, it fell into debauchery, which then just completely destroyed it. And that's technically, I think, still to this day, the longest running governmental structure, right? I mean, I think Roman Empire lasted for more years than any other governmental structure has ever done, any civilization nation, right?
Or How long did it last? Was it? I'm gonna Google it.
I feel like that's true, but yeah, maybe we should look it up. But that's a good indicator, and especially because our government was really founded on a lot of those same types of principles of republicanism, right? And founded on Christian values, which, you know, the Roman Empire wasn't that. In fact, I think Jesus and God really used the Roman Empire to finalize a lot of what was the Old Testament. And I'll throw out one that I kind of think right now is that Old Testament was the way that we know the Old Testament, with the Torah and the other 3 books, I think 3 or 4 books that were put together that created kind of the biblical Old Testament. That I think God put that together, demonstrated that through those people, how he was going to become who he was, how he was going to redeem the fact that sin and death came into this planet. And I think it was showing how a people group can continue to fall away and fall away and fall away. And finally, when they have been promised every way that you can imagine through 1,000 years of generations, and they still miss it when it finally comes down to them. And even though Daniel and all these people said, this is how it's going to be, like almost verbatim down to like, he's going to look like this. Like they almost literally say who he is, when he's going to come, on down to the day. Like, how do you think that the 3 wise men that came over, right? The wise guys from the East, how do you think they knew that he was happening? Yeah, they saw the star, but at the same time, they were like, wait a minute, this matches up to what was happening. There was a prophetic guy that told them a whole bunch of stuff about that prophecy, and they were tracking it more than the Israelites were. So when it finally all happened, those guys came over to pay homage to the savior of the earth. That's why they came.
And I think a lot of things, Roman Empire's 1,480 years. America's only 200 years old.
50,
250 years old.
Right.
And that's scary.
Yeah, it truly is.
It took 1,480 years for that one to collapse. We're supposed to be more intelligent, more civilized, and all-knowing and stuff. And that's what human arrogance is our biggest Achilles heel, thinking that we know everything. Yeah. But also back then is they weren't. I think another big thing that we need to start as Christians, start not only accepting to be true, but really believe is the supernatural is very real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, yes.
I mean, I know Christians that they believe in Jesus and that he was resurrected and everything, but that's the only supernatural thing that they can come to terms with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how is that even possible?
Well, you have all through the Bible, you have floating axe heads, You have a mysterious hand writing on the wall. You have talking donkeys. You have all of these things, and then you have the Savior of the world dying and resurrecting. And to your point, Nate, Isaiah 53, which is Old Testament, explains explicitly who the Savior of the world is.
Yeah.
And they still didn't get it.
Yeah.
Because the scribes and Pharisees would have known the scriptures. And it is verbatim of who Jesus was going to be, how he was going to die, everything, and they still missed it.
Yep. It's interesting because I think the Old Testament, when Jesus finally came through, and I've been reading through with our church, we've been going through Matthew 24, Matthew 20s, right? It kind of right up to Holy Week, right? And that whole thing really is hilarious to look at in the light of my mindset today, because I really see through how Jesus was literally just speaking in parables to those guys, telling them exactly what it was. He's in the temple flipping tables. And then these guys come up and try to pin him by asking him all these questions. Those questions were coming from the Pharisaical background, which was way off track. That was bounced back into Canaanite stuff. That was all kinds of Pharisaical law. Then the Sadducees had their own belief in it, which they only believed a certain part of the Old Testament Torah. They didn't believe in some of the other aspects of it. And they asked him a question, and Jesus just slammed them down, with their responses, to where they was like, whoa, I couldn't say anything, so Pharisees are asking, who do you think, or who do you think you are? Some say you're this, some say you're that. And he's like, well, what do you think I am? They couldn't answer, because one way or the other of answering that question was going to prove him to be God. Right.
Yeah.
So when the Sadducees came up and asked him too, their question was, hey, if a guy takes a wife and then he dies and his brother takes him and then he does this 7 times, because that's their whole weird out philosophical concept background. And it's like, guys, you're missing the point of the whole thing.
That's right.
And I think that statement, those kind of questions, really revealed the heart of what was considered the leadership of the Israeli people, the Israelites of that day. And when they fully missed it, and then they took Jesus to the cross and killed him, it was like, well, you guys, this is the branch that is now completely broken off. And then the Roman Empire, even in its demise that happened, I guess, another 200 some years after Jesus, they were the ones that turned stone from stone. They were the ones that went in there and tore that temple down. They were the ones that destroyed, and I believe, and to a certain degree, completely eradicated the Israelite people from the earth. I think they chased them to the ends of the earth. They dominated more territory in the whole entire world than any other civilization at that time. And when they were going in there to destroy the Israel as a nation state, completely wipe them out, they did it. Scattered them to the ends of the earth. And then from there on out, they have been interbred throughout all of the other people types, the Gentiles and others, that there's no purebred Israel Jew left on this planet whatsoever at all. That whole entire people group, like the way of the dodo, are extinct. And I think that's absolutely true. And when the Old Testament was ended through the acts of what Jesus did, that is what changed that whole entire thing. And it went all the way back to Abraham's seed. And that's why we see all the lineages through the Old Testament. That's why we see everything you could track from Abraham to Jesus in the Bible. No questions, no problems whatsoever. You see it every family step all the way through to Jesus. So we know that Abraham's seed was the one that redeemed all of humanity, not the Israelites, not the promised land, all of those things that God put on the Israelites that they were more than happy to accept and then break away from. Watch every other king. Watch Moses having to constantly keep these people on track. Watch how pansy they were when God said, go and take the land. There's giants down there. Okay, then you guys all going to die and I'll send your kids in. It's like these people never got it. So for them to never get it all the way through, God's like, how more obvious do I have to make it? Well, let me show you the Torah and 5 other books of this Old Testament, how dense you people are. Humans are dense. And then Jesus comes and he says, this is how you do it. You follow and believe in me. I'm the only way. You follow and obey my rules and my laws and what I tell you, and you follow me, you're going to be a children of God. You're going to be just like me. You're going to have the same dominion on earth. You're going to do these things just like I do. And I think that's the change. So kingdom of heaven has been here since Jesus. So people
Absolutely.
that talk about kingdom come, no, dude, it's been here for 2,000 years, 2,025 years. Kingdom come has been here, and we've been living in kingdom, and yet we've been ignoring it. We've been throwing it to the side. We've been getting all distracted in Zionism and dispensationalism and all these other kinds of hootenanny Christianity stupidities. And that stuff, you have to go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theory, dig into the things, see the nastiness of hatred, of sin, of death, and of putrid evil that Satan absolutely is, to come to Jesus and realize nothing else matters except for Jesus right now. Like, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. It doesn't matter who's doing what to you. It doesn't matter Iran war, Mexican war, drones, Epstein files, pedophilia, cannibalism. All of these things fall second to Jesus is king, and I'm following him, and it doesn't matter what happens. And because I'm following him, I have dominion of Jesus, dominion of heaven over this planet. Therefore, nothing evil can touch me.
Right.
And it's like, holy crap, are you telling me like that's the answer to everything, right? I can't even believe it. Still disregard it. I just can't even believe it.
And what's pretty cool is if you look at the lineage of Jesus, if God is so concerned about Jews being the chosen people, which we know they are, the first 3 to 4 women in Jesus's lineages were not Jews. They were not Jewish.
Nope.
Right.
They weren't Jewish. So that what does that tell us? That tells us that God respects all people.
Absolutely.
That we as Gentiles who've accepted the Son, because in John, Jesus says, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life." Those who, to get to the Father, you have to get through me. I'm the doorway to the Father. Then he says, those who have the Son have the Father, but those who reject the Son have the Father not. They don't have the Father. So that tells you right there that the modern day Jews are not part of Israel because they reject the Son. They reject Jesus.
Yep.
Because what we have to understand is we're talking about the spiritual right now, as we're speaking. Yes, Israel is a country in the Middle East, but the biblical Israel went from the physical to the spiritual through Jesus Christ's death, burial, and resurrection. So the true Israel is no longer physical, it's spiritual. And it encompasses all who believe in Jesus Christ. Period. All people who believe in Jesus Christ. Because what is required? Belief and repentance. That's all that's required.
Yep. And that's in Galatians. Paul specifically talks about that it eliminated all constraints of humanity. Names, genders, everything eliminated because those things are not important. It didn't mean that now we're trans. It meant that in Jesus, in God, as sons and daughters of God, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. So like in the Jewish culture, female couldn't do anything. Dude, we brought that into church. How many of us grew up in church where they wouldn't let women get up on stage and preach? Are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? Like Jesus said, Paul wrote that. It doesn't matter if it's men or women. It doesn't matter if it's Jew or Gentile. If you follow him, trust in him, and believe in him, and follow and obey his laws, what he tells you to do, you're his kid, and it doesn't matter. And I think we still to this day get completely hyper focused on male and female and Jew and Gentile and all these kinds of things that we constantly put back onto our lives, these human constraints, and act like that's our identity. Our identity is Jesus. Our identity is Jesus. There's literally nothing else. So if somebody goes, well, what are you? I mean, you asked me in the introduction, who are you and what do you do? I don't know if I said it, but I feel like I said I'm a serial entrepreneur first, but that's not who I am. I just used God's name in vain. I am the great I am is who I am. That's what I'm after. I am a child of God. I am a follower of Jesus. I am a Christian. And I'm using the I am in the right way. So I am not a serial entrepreneur first. I am a child of God. I am the chosen one that he brought into me because of Jesus, that I can now go to his throne room, sit there and look in his face because of Jesus. That's who I am. That's my identity first. And then all these other things come because of what I do, where I'm going, what I'm doing, those kinds of things. And I think that is the hang up, is that it's easy for Christians. It's easy for a lot of people, that even people who don't want to be a Christian, they don't want to get into religious stuff. They don't want to get into faith. They find their identities in the things that are convenient. I believe that 3/4 of the reason that trans and gay and all these other kinds of things became so popular, and as a popular identity that you could just like take a book off the shelf. Oh, I grabbed this identity and I self-identify myself as gay, trans, or whatever thing that gave them political authority or gave them a status over others. Then that's what
it put them in a politically protected class.
Exactly. So
and that's why you see a lot of like
sideways, twisted, or otherwise. Man, all you got to do is just proclaim this identity, and you're good to commit crimes. It's like, what?
And you can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Reject God's law. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't think you need an identity to do that. Just do it. But then at the end of the day, suffer the consequences that come with it.
Exactly. And what you have just talked about, Nate, that's the way that we must go into battle and fight this treachery of human trafficking, of cannibalism, and this satanic sex magic stuff that's out there in the world. Because Brandon and I have spoken many times. There are 13 bloodline families that are evil and satanic, that rule the world, and that are pushing this agenda and pushing this sex trafficking and children trafficking and all of these horrible things. And the way we combat that is through Jesus Christ. It's taking on the full armor of God every day, every morning, and going out and battle through the day and doing what we can to fight for the betterment of the kingdom, whatever that looks like. Whether
I think it looks like what you do every day. So if you're glorifying God in what you're doing, whether you're tearing down, a magnetic machine, I always can never remember the name of the machines you tear down, but whether you're tearing, CT machines down, or whether you're on stage doing a performance, if you're doing that in the glorification of God, that I stand in my position only because God was allowed me to be here, because he put me here to be able to speak to you today, whether that's the guy backstage, that's the random tech that you're walking across, or some hobo outside of the hospital or wherever we're walking. In the Bible, that talked about the guy that was lame, and Jesus went and healed him, and everybody around him, the disciples, were like, what happened to this dude? Why was he lame? Did his dad do this? Did somebody else do that? Was there somebody in his family that sinned, and he's paying the price of the sin? And Jesus is like, no, he was this way to glorify, for this time for me to be glorified. And it's like, what? So a human was suffering so that Jesus at that moment could walk over there and heal him and show glorification of God. Well, that's exactly what we need to be focusing on in our lives every day. Every situation that we're going on, that reason for that situation was there to glorify God, whether it was just to that one person, or to the people that you're walking with, or to people that are walking by that are just watching and you don't even know what their deal is. Somebody across the street saw you pray for somebody. That person was sick. That conversation happened. You stepped up and prayed. And this person across the street was like, whoa, they're praying for each other. What? That's, whoa. And all of a sudden,
that's been programmed out of our society as Christians.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's been, I mean, what's the one faith that can be scrutinized and ridiculed and has no social consequence for? And that's Christianity.
Yep.
You can't do that with Muslims. You can't do that with Jews. Obviously, now we have states with laws that say you can't say anything bad about Jews. You think in a million years that that as a Christian nation, why in the world would we have a law that says you can't say anything about like that's insane.
Yeah.
That is insane. Because
And they're trying to push this Noah laws on us.
Yeah. Do they need
The
protection? Are they scared
yeah.
of being exposed? Mm.
Well, no, it's just the arrogance because these Jews, and when I say that, I'm talking about the people who are Jewish. I can't say that term. Ashkenazi Jews. They're what is it? 15% of the population. I'd be very curious to see if they're Rh negative bloodline.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'm gonna bet there is.
Yeah. So, DNA testing some of these people is never going to happen.
Exactly. That's why it's outlawed in Israel.
Well, I just want to know if they're Rh negative because there's a very like prominent theory that people with Rh negative blood are in some way, shape, or form descendants of the Nephilim.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I've also heard that with typo as well.
Yeah.
And yep.
And it is very. Just with a quick Google search, you can see that with that particular ethnicity of people, they don't marry outside of their people. They don't do business with anybody else other than their people. If they do, they are in a position of power, complete power and authority.
Yep.
And just listening to, if you just listen to them talk, they talk like they are just a god in human form.
Right.
And and we're Gorum. We're considered Gorum. We're considered sheep or cattle. Now, here's a good thing. When you look in Revelation and Jesus is speaking, and he's saying, you who are Jew in name only, basically you are a Jew who say you're Jews but are not Jews.
That's
you are of your father the devil. You are exactly the synagogue of Satan. Now, who is he talking about? He's talking to the Pharisees. The Pharisees were Edomites. Well, who are Edomites? When you trace down the road of the Edomites, it goes directly back to the Canaanites.
Yes.
The people of Cain. And that was the thing you talking about Cain and Abel. So Cain got cast out to, what was it? The land of
Nod.
Yep.
It says he immediately took a wife and started building cities.
Yep.
Who did he wife up with? I don't think that was whoever was there. I think it could have been a humanoid type being, but it wasn't a human being.
It's very true.
You create a race of hybrid, and they're trying to do the same thing now, just in technology. They're trying to hybridize. They're trying to, and that's the game plan. They don't stop. It's the most insane thing. How I don't see how people aren't connecting these dots, because it's the same game plan. Destroy the human genome, create debauchery, and we've got you.
Yep.
You're a part of our team now, whether you like it or not. And for all the Gnostics out there, you can't sit this one out. This is not a war that you just get to passively sit by.
Right.
You are going to be on one side or the other.
Yep.
And there is no choice. And it is going to be presented, and that's the thing that they didn't have back then like they have now, is all these different alternative they did to a certain extent, but now you have Gnostic people, you have spiritual people but not religious, you have all these different alternatives for God.
Mm-hmm.
But none of those people, but there's not really a God, because if there's really a God, I got to be accountable for what I do. And if I don't want to do that, and that's a big social norm that is being pushed right now, is you're so oppressed, so you're not responsible for anything bad that you do, and everything bad that's happened to you is because you're oppressed. And it's this victim mentality that's just seated in self-destruction.
Yeah, that's all communism, Marxism that
Absolutely.
infiltrated during the Cold War. So you look at, a couple of our presidents right during World War II, they were, McCarthy era. They were talking
Yeah.
about, hey, it's not bad to be a communist in America. And the Communist Party was pretty prevalent, and they were heavily involved in a lot of government stuff. And when McCarthy finally got censured, I guess is what they call it in Congress, everybody kind of realized, hey, man, this is maybe a hot potato. We're not going to call ourselves that name anymore. And so they changed their names to socialist. They called themselves social justice.
Rebranding.
They rebranded themselves into these things, and yet they still executed their business plans, their strategies of imparting communism and Marxism into the United States. And I believe that our country now is probably more communist today with this whole guise of, a
100%.
sheetrock facade of freedom that surrounds us. But just look at, hardcore communist Marxist rhetorics, that it's about dividing people. It's about setting up class warfare. It's about the struggle. It's always these struggles. And that's what our entire country lives in. If you're not struggling for your sexual right, you're struggling for, the oppressed people that came in here illegally. You're struggling for all of these kinds of things. There's always this struggle, this division. And that is communism, satanic at its root. I also think it's a bit of distraction, because as Satan will never he doesn't like to be invisible behind the scenes. He always wants to make sure that his name's on the playbill, right? His name up in lights. So eventually his name comes out as the headliner. You know what I mean? And so as we see the Epstein Files pop up, we see all these things. You start to see Luciferian, cannibalistic craziness, insane levels of evil that nobody even dreamed about that's actually happening. But then as you start to see all this stuff that's popping up in Mexico, because we have the new Monroe Doctrine, whatever you want to call it right now, where it's global hegemony, where nation states are controlling their entire hemispherical powers. They're not letting bullcrap happen in their hemisphere anymore. So if cartels are going to live across the street from us, across a border in Mexico, that's not allowed anymore. And the power authorities that are basically controlling this entire hemisphere are going to say, no, we're not doing that. So Mexico is kind of surrounded as a narco state. If you really do the research into Mexico, you look at the fact that, including now to the president of Mexico, is a narco plant by cartels putting her into office. And they've done that to dozens of cities and states all across Mexico. So when the United States officially, I think they say that they gave intel information to be able to cut the head off of the JNSC or whatever cartel that's out there, the Jalisco cartel. They killed this guy and they flip out. But now all of the exposure of what those cartels do to people, do to their people to be, if you want to be a part of the gang, you go through a whole initiation process, and you have to go kill somebody and you have to eat them. What? That's part of the initiation. You have to kill somebody. Like when I was a kid and I was like, thought it was cool to be a Blood or a Crip or some kind of gangbanger when I was a kid in Greeley, Colorado, they did want you to go kill somebody, but I was not. So I just dipped out of gangs, man. I'm like, nope, not playing in this. But I knew all those guys. I knew where they were at. I saw them. I met them. They were coming to Greeley and hanging out, getting out of LA, coming to Greeley, and they talked about that's how they got initiated. They had to kill somebody. But this level now, cartels are now saying you need to kill somebody and then cook them and eat them, or just eat them. That's nasty. And then the way that they're controlling the people that are out of control that they want to have be done, they kill their family and force that person to eat their family and then kill them. Dude, this
that empowers the spiritual entity behind that dominion.
Yes.
Yeah, because now
that sacrifice empowers them, it energizes them.
Yep.
And the person or whatever's at the head of that, whether they're in human form or not, is that empowers that spirit, which that spirit does empower those people.
Yep.
And
Well,
That's
so
that's
you defile yourself in the face of God by participating in what he told us not to do. I don't care if that's
right.
like, go read Leviticus and tell me what God told us not to do, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
And we could say, well, Jesus fulfilled the law, therefore none of those rules mean anything to us. Okay.
No.
So all of those rules still stand today, including not eating pork
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
bottom feeders, right? Okay, so those all still stand. I don't care what you want to say. They still stand as rules on how to live in this world. He told us what that is. So if a gang member can force another human to defile God by eating another human, cannibalism, that person, where do they stand when they have to stand in front of God and answer to those things, right? Satan wants to make it out to be like, oh, I won. I basically dropped the trump card and said, now you can't ever go to heaven because you defiled God's laws. I forced you to do it. I did this by forcing you because I was going to kill your family, or I was going to initiate you into a full darkness of Satan, ritualistic, cartel, or I'm going to sneak it into, a soda, or I'm going to sneak it into a McDonald's burger. I'm going to do these kinds of things. And because nobody's said anything, all the good people are like, hey, it's kind of, maybe, I don't know if it's true or not. We've all defiled ourselves in the face of God.
Yeah.
Sin is sin. We've broken that. But then this is how funny it is. It comes back to Jesus again. Jesus broke all of those things and saved us through the worst of the sin. And I think that is, again, it's like Satan thinks he wins because he plays these complete psychotic, dark, evil games. Jesus wins at the end because he overrode all of it. Like 100% of anything that Satan ever did before and is going to do, even through the debauchery and craziness that we see on the news and we hear about in the Epstein Files and everything else, Jesus still worked through that and bypassed all that stuff. And that just, to me, it just blows my mind. Like, thank you, God, every day that I can see through this garbage and see you on the other side. Man, that's that.
And they expose themselves so much.
Wake up to Jesus.
Go and
right there.
You go up to any of these people, and that's back to the program I was talking about before. Is that we've been programmed as Christians to be silent.
Yes.
And if you think you haven't been programmed, how much hesitancy do you have when you're at the gas station and go up to somebody and say, "Hey, can I pray for you?" I guarantee you don't.
Right.
I guarantee you go, "Oh yeah, but I'm late. I gotta get going. I'm sorry, I can't do it right now. I'll pray for you though." You'll go home to do it. You'll go home to do it.
Yeah. Right.
Or go up to somebody you don't know, or even that you do know, and that you know that doesn't know it, or probably everybody knows who Jesus is. If you don't know who Jesus is, you've lived under a rock.
Right.
So nobody has an excuse now. It's like, oh, I just didn't know, kind of thing. Unless you live in a tribe in the Amazon, then maybe you have an excuse. But now you don't have an excuse.
That's right.
And the thing that Satan loves and the enemy loves, because not just Satan, there's a lot of generals in this. And the spiritual world's set up very much like a hierarchy, very much like a military. You have, and I don't even know if Satan's at the top of it, because Satan is not one of the most powerful angels, but he is the most persuasive and he is a good talker. Somebody explained it to as like, he's not the pastor, but he's the spiritual leader.
Yeah.
So he's the one that gets everybody at the beginning of church, that gets them up off their feet, gets amped, gets going, and loves to worship, kind of thing. And then you have even powerful entities above him that are actually more powerful. Like seraphim angels are one.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, if you get into Enoch, you get into Watchers, you get into all these other weird things. Believe it or not, right? So take it or leave it for what it's worth. But yeah, you get into all these other things that I would agree with you that he was some type of archangel or something. What does it specifically say? Didn't it say something like that that he was an archangel?
He was an archangel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was actually over music. So his body was actually a musical instrument.
Right.
And then he he wanted to be worshipped like God, and God dispatched him out of heaven.
Yep.
So
Because these entities have a really big ego, and I mean, as Christians, we are targets because there's nothing more. There's no bigger win for them when they can get somebody who is a Christian and loves the Lord to Google some type of porn when they get home, or get a doorway open into their life, because if they love that, because that they see is a massive win when they can come in there. But and again, it goes back to Jesus. You can repent. You can hit that reset button.
absolutely.
Exactly.
You can be forgiven.
Yeah.
You can be forgiven. And the world tells us, no, you can't be forgiven. Nope,
That's
nope,
right.
no. What you did was way too bad. You can never be forgiven for it.
Mhm.
And
Well,
I think as Christians too, like especially with this like political battle as far as the left and the right, I mean, that is just a whole farce and to begin with. I think we need as Christians and as American first Christians, we need to figure out a way to stop demonizing the left, because these people have been brainwashed.
Mhm.
sure.
They've been brainwashed to think that we have been brainwashed.
Yeah. Right.
And they think they're
But it's both sides, Brandon.
completely it is both sides.
Both sides. It's
Like
both
you have,
sides.
you have the people who think that Trump is like the next Messiah and can do no wrong.
Yeah. Right.
And that's stupid too.
Right.
And like I look at, and people need, I think that this is the safest way, I believe, and this is my personal opinion, to approach politics as a Christian. You look at politicians as tools. They are not saviors. They are not leaders. And they are not, they're not leaders. And they're not even particularly that smart or good at anything. That's why they're in politics, is because they can't do anything else other than they're really good at persuading people.
Right.
But if you can use them as a tool to persuade people to vote and do things that align with your values and how you would like the world to be ran, then and you filter out the people who don't want to do that. And and like this time, we thought that we were choosing a good team, and I think they do want to do good, like you said. And once they got in there, however, I'm sorry, that doesn't give you an excuse to tuck your tails between your legs, because
I agree with that.
You're not like, if I'm a I'm a cabinet maker from Tennessee. If I can see that, hey, on the other side of that curtain, some real evil, the people who have been over there, maybe not in the same, maybe not in the intel agencies, or maybe not in this position or whatever, but you've been there and you have eyes. So if you accept the position, you also accept all the responsibilities of that position.
Right. Right.
You don't just get to have authority without responsibility.
Right.
So if we elect you and you accept that, it's your responsibility to make sure that people who are human trafficking and that are eating children,
right?
I don't care if they're the leader of the world or they're a self-proclaimed God themselves, they need to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that is I don't care what you believe in.
Right.
Everybody in this entire world who's not evil, which the majority of us aren't evil, spiritually, I mean everybody does evil things, but spiritually most people have a sense of morality and that believe that eating children and trafficking children and all the other crazy stuff they do is bad.
Right.
There's no reason these people should have power. There's more of us than there are them.
Right.
But
exactly.
they fold and say, "Oh no, I'm just gonna ride this 4 years out, and I'll just tote the line. I'm a company man,
Yeah.
kind of thing."
Yeah. I feel like
no,
it's,
you
a
don't
lot
get to
like,
do that. You don't.
yeah.
Then get out and get somebody in that will.
Hmm. I feel like it's a lot
Because-
like in The Princess Bride when, he was talking about, I'm going to cut off your ear and then I'm going to cut off your, your nose and all this stuff. And he's like, yeah. And then, to the death, right? And he's like, no, to the pain. I don't think that enough people have the threshold to go to the pain and suffer with it. Death is easy.
Yeah.
But can you really suffer through the entire pain of what it's required to step up to a position of authority, to step into a position to deal with something that is horrific? I look at a representative, I think she's from Florida, Anna Paulina Luna, APL.
Mhm.
That lady has got her stuff together. She's the one that is full blown up to her ears and eyeballs in Epstein Files. And when they started releasing those things, she was watching how they put those out. And when they put out the whole database that you can search, and it sounds like, you've gone into that a little bit and looked at how those files actually are in that whole entire system where you can search the files. There was a trap for a lot of congressmen that was put in place. And, oh my gosh, I cannot remember her name all of a sudden. Anyway, once the trap was set, it was 3 or 4 days later, they went in before Congress and brought the records of what everybody searched for.
Was that Marjorie Taylor Greene?
No, it was
she resigned.
Yeah, she resigned. That's right.
Yeah,
and she was a good fighter too. She just didn't have that's the thing that's kind of pissed me off about Trump with this whole thing with Massey trying to get him out of his position. Like, what are you doing, dude? What if you don't want to fight?
Yeah.
That's fine. Then sit down and shut up. But don't try to get people who want to fight out of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the lady that's the Justice Department director. What's her name?
Bondi.
Pam Bondi.
Pam Bondi. Yeah. I should remember that. Somehow I don't remember it.
And she shouldn't even be there. Why do you think
she
whole
went
allegation...
in though with that litmus test? She went in with those search results and really went to specifically all these Democrats and looked at who searched, and it was Democrats, Republicans, both. And they jumped in those things and started frantically searching for making sure their name wasn't pulling up. They started frantically looking for, any connections to them. So they were all like in CYA mode trying to figure it out. And a couple days later, when she goes and sits in front of them, she brings all those receipts. And those guys couldn't say anything because she had them pinned right to the wall with what the receipts were. And so to me, when you look at if this is really what kind of the inside behind the scenes is actually happening, I guarantee you Trump, and he said this to a number of times, why would I tell you what I'm actually doing? When there's a secret mission and we're going to go over and do something, I'm not telling you. It's not going to come through the media, right? I don't have a personal phone call to Trump, and I know some people probably do, but I guarantee he's not leaking information. And if there is information that's leaking, he's probably setting it up to leak through somebody who's a known leaker. Like, that's how I've managed my businesses. I can really figure out my teams really quickly by setting situations up to let them fail. I'm going to set up a situation. Like a real old school one is like when you got a cash register and you got an operator's running that cash register and you suspect they're maybe stealing money, you go in and throw a $20 bill in some really weird place, under the tray, off to the side, something like that. And if that $20 bill doesn't end up in there and the 20 plus in your cash register end of day, whoever was operating that cash register is probably taking that $20 bill because it should have been plus 20, right? Or plus 100, however you want to test it. And if you plus them on 100, you've got them on a level of criminal activity that is a fireable offense. And so you play these games inside of your teams to find out who's loyal. You play those things inside of teams to figure out who's on your side, who's actually following through with the guidelines, the rules, the things that you set up. And so if you want something leaked, and you especially want it to be leaked by that guy, man, he's an easy fall guy because you've already targeted that guy. You already know who he is and what he's doing. So you give him kind of information acting like, don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody. It's like, you know that guy's going to go tell everybody because he's an idiot, right?
Yeah.
You keep those kind of guys on your team
Well, yeah,
because you
they're
want them to
useful
leak it.
idiots.
Yeah.
And
So-
that's unfortunately that's where a lot of our politicians that sit there are useful idiots, and they're not useful idiots for
Representative
us. But I think it's very interesting now that I'm going back to this Israel thing. Is
Yeah.
I do think Trump he's got a lot of bad actors in his camp that. Like, I mean, one file I found, Rubio helped fund the. He was talking about how he was helping fund the.
He's glitching.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he's.
Yeah, internet went down in my house today. It was kind of frustrating.
Yeah, it's sometimes with when we talk about these things, we get some weird things to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, and while he's trying to get back, you know, I did some research on the Epstein Files. We talked about this earlier off camera, but cannibal appears 52 times within the files. Six times it mentions cannibalism, and then one email references a restaurant called Cannibal, and it repeatedly mentions jerky, which some suspect is a code word for, you know, human flesh, or maybe even eating children or something of that nature.
Right.
And it goes on that, you know, Epstein had some sort of ritualistic sacrifice, or, you know, there was an interview with a gentleman with the FBI officials. That's an anonymous man. Yeah, we're back. We're kind of went ahead as you kind of. This happens. We know this happens every time.
I called that one.
Yeah. So we were discussing the Epstein Files. I was mentioning that, you know, Epstein had, you know, in the files that there was some type of ritualistic sacrifice that it revolved around a guy that was anonymous that was talking to the FBI, and the man witnessed acts of sacrifice on board, so supposedly Epstein's yacht. There was some kind of sacrifice that was going on
about that.
And this was in like 2000, and you know, Epstein was such a sexual deviant. You know, many times in the files, he's asking young girls to submit explicit photos to him, that kind of garbage. And then, you know, he installed numerous cameras in his different homes, and this by far was it was a blackmailing scheme. And no matter what anybody says, I believe that Epstein was a Mossad agent. I believe that he was being used as a blackmailer for the elite and you know, Hollywood elites, government officials, you name it. He was inviting him to his island and to his personal residence, videotaping these people in precarious situations with minors, and using that for leverage in decision making.
Yeah, I mean, honeypots have been used by every kind of government worldwide.
Yeah.
You know, China's used it on American citizens. We got some big shot in the Congress that, you know, used to have his Fang friend, right? So honeypots, I mean, you go back to every movie, you watch every movie about James Bond, watch any of these movies, and you see these honeypot situations that are set up. And, you know, I think the disgusting part of it is that people go off into the kids. You know, it's one thing to be like, oh, I've got a girlfriend and she's 20 and I'm 50. That's one thing, you know. But like when it gets into this other Luciferian, demonic, satanic garbage, that's when it gets really twisted. And
that's where the kids come in, because they love defiling innocence.
Exactly. There you go. That's exactly right.
That's
because
what that's the
bail, and
there's power. There's I don't know if what actual power it is, but there's some type of supernatural power that they get from defiling innocence.
That's because they're the closest to heaven than any of the adults are.
Yes.
Because they just came to earth from heaven.
Mhm.
And so they're closer to heaven than any adult is. I don't care if the adult's about to get killed next week. They're the ones that remember what heaven actually was like.
Mhm.
Their spirit is still really connected to heaven in that way.
Mhm.
And Jesus said,
that makes more
put a
sense.
millstone around your neck and cast you into the deepest sea, whoever defiles or hurts one of these little ones. And
Mhm.
that, I think, is where Jesus put that kind of consequence on hurting the kids. So if Satan can get you to do that, then you get hurled to the bottom of the sea.
Absolutely.
So does that mean you're separated from Jesus? Maybe.
Yeah, I saw a meme the other day that says, "Let's make rope, a boat, and millstones great again."
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So is that maybe Satan's ploy to say, if I can get people to defile a kid, one of these little ones, that Jesus would wrap a millstone around their neck and cast them into the bottom of the sea, would they then be taken away from God, taken away from Jesus indefinitely? It's a good question, because we were just talking about how Jesus can override and supersede all of those things, but then that one
He can,
said that specifically. It's like, interesting.
I think it's more of a spiritual. I was listening to, I can't remember which podcast it was, but they're talking about spiritual fracturing. There's certain sins that you can do that you can actually, you fracture your spirit. You break your spirit. Your spirit's broken.
Right.
And yes, Jesus can heal. Jesus can heal your spirit, but that type of sin has much greater spiritual ramifications. Because think about what you're doing when you do that to a child. You are psychologically breaking that child. And like,
absolutely,
a lot of people who molest kids and stuff, majority of them were molested themselves. And or a lot of people that beat children and stuff are beating themselves. And think about how many generations of trauma and generations of just terrible actions you are setting up for that person. You are setting them up to potentially do a whole bloodline of just evil being done to every child after that. And that's not just lying because you got in trouble. That's a sin on a whole new level.
Sure.
And I think that's why that's a big, because again, like these victims, these people don't, you can't tell me that they don't have some type of like there's evil stronghold on them. Once you fracture your soul, evil can have a stronghold on you. Like it's because your spirit does. How'd they put it? So like, it's almost like a generational curse. So generational curses, where
man, no doubt,
where your say your great grandmother has brought a spiritual curse on you. And then this woman was telling how she is being demonically, like the demonic oppression, oppression happening in her life is on a whole nother level than anything that like normal people. And she's prayed. She's a Christian. She prays every day. And this thing physically torments her.
Right.
And then her question is, how is this thing being able to physically torment me without, and me trying to praying hedges of protection and stuff is not working? How do you fight against that? And It's because that they have had their doorway is that fractured spirit.
Yeah.
But also in the Bible, if you remember, the disciples went out and tried to cast out spirits in this one person, and they couldn't do it. And they went to Jesus, and Jesus said, "This spirit can only be cast out through fasting and prayer."
Right. Right.
And so that's why fasting, the question you brought up earlier, is so important, because why? It's a cleansing mechanism, not only for the physical, but also for the spiritual.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if
we're
you're
spiritual
fasting
beings
and
first.
proclaiming it, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to add on. We're spiritual beings first.
Yes,
That's right.
And
That's right.
we are temporarily in a physical form.
Yeah.
In which then you think, okay, then if demons are spirits, can they take a physical form? Well, a lot of people don't think so because they're spirits. Well, we're spirits. And I can see y'all just fine. And and then it says in the Bible where Sodom and Gomorrah, they came in, sat down, and ate with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a spirit. That sounds like a physical. So like
manifestation.
That's another thing that the church always like says. Oh, angels are just spirits. They can't. They only exist in this spiritual realm, and that's all happening over there, kind of thing.
Right.
Worry about
behind a veil or something.
Yeah, it's all happening over there, away from you, and that's not true. That gives a lot of people some false security, and as Christians, we need to have our head on a swivel right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Dude, you brought up something just a few minutes ago talking about that I think is really a good refocus for Christians, because here we are, we can sit here in this conversation right now and we can get all high and mighty and talking about all these things and all the stuff that's happening, and we can proclaim these things and even to a certain degree get kind of like righteously angry about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I think a couple of things you said was that we need to think about liberals. We need to think about those families that are trapped in these prisons.
Yeah, we need to get them out.
Emotional, because it actually touches to the actual heart of God for people who are lost.
Absolutely.
And that actually changes our hearts and our minds to how we're dealing with these situations, because we can sit there and be like, oh, that's evil and that's bad and this is wrong and dang those people, and they should have a millstone thrown around their neck and thrown into the earth, in the pit of the sea. And God's like, yeah, but those are my people that need to be saved. And I think that's what Jesus calls us to be, is to be looking for people who are trapped in these prisons and break them free.
Yeah.
To end those generational things. Sorry, that right there to me is so intense, because like your statements of those things kind of shocked me out of this thing that, like, as a conspiracy theorist, as following all these things, I kind of get in myself to where I know all these things, and dang, these people just aren't getting it.
Yeah, no,
Jesus was like
completely get what you're saying,
and crying over those people that are trapped in these prisons, not even of their own doing, but like of generations past, trapped them into these prisons, and they're stuck and they can't get out.
Yeah, and like a lot of these people, they come, like, I'm blessed because I grew up in a home with two parents who are God-fearing people. They love the Lord, and I learned I learned about God from a young age. A lot of these people, like, what about the kid that grows up with atheist parents, or grows up with, say, two moms that think that it's okay to, that you can be whatever you want to be. You can be a girl. You can, and here's the thing that once you've, here's where it gets very twisted and just evil, is when you convince a child to defile their bodies.
Yeah,
and it's okay, and that's not okay. And it's now, do you feel like I truly believe that these people feel like they're saying they feel like. That's 100% believe that. Nobody I don't know anybody who would go through any of that willingly who doesn't truly believe it. But just because you truly believe that, that does not mean that it's real.
Right.
That's an emotion. Emotions can make you convince anything. Make you convince that the sky's green,
Absolutely.
and also emotions can there's with as much stuff going on today, everybody wants an enemy to fight against.
Mm-hmm.
And when the enemy is when you have to look in the mirror and be like, it's me, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially when you feel like you're doing, like these people who with the social justice and stuff, they feel like they're liberating people, they feel like they're doing good. They are convinced that they are doing good things for people, and their heart's in the right place and all, but they don't stop to look in the mirror and say, is this what? And that's where, if you don't, with all this conspiracy stuff, if you're not looking at it through a grounding lens of Jesus, and that's not me trying to be a self-righteous Christian. That's me saying I've looked at it through multiple different lenses. Let's go through the atheist lens. Let's go through this lens, that lens, and that lens. It all fractures at some point down the line. It does not hold up to scrutiny.
Right.
The only way it's all connects and it all makes logical sense is through the Bible and through Jesus. The whole story, going back to the beginning,
Absolutely. No doubt.
explains why things are like they are today. Why people act this way. I don't like normal people don't go out and look at kids and want to eat them or defile them. That's not a normal behavior. And you can say, okay, well, they're just insane and they're crazy people. Okay, well, then why are they billionaires?
Yeah.
It's very difficult to be a billionaire. It's very difficult to run a country. You can't tell me that all these people are so crazy and insane that they're willing to do this crazy stuff, but flip a switch and all of a sudden they're smart enough and intelligent enough to move through the world and create an amount of wealth and success for themselves that most people can't do. Some of the smartest people in the world can't do.
Right.
So those two truths can't exist at the same time. Okay. The only other thing is it's got to be spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. Because what do we see in the Bible? We see a God's creation that fell. And for the rest of the biblical narrative, it's God trying to get his people back to him.
That's right.
And he does that through his son, Jesus Christ, because Jesus was going to be, or is, the only clear, clean, pure sacrifice. Because in Levitical law, to take an animal and have it to be sacrificed, it only covered sin. It didn't wash it away. So that your sins were being placed upon that animal.
Right.
But Jesus, his blood washed our sins.
Right.
And it's just like Israel today. You know, Israel, this little country over there, that most of the Jewish culture, not all, there's still some Jews that are just simply practice Judaism, but you have a larger number that practice the Talmud. And the Talmud is a book of Canaanite, just detestable Canaanite religion. And that's what the Talmud is. I'm sorry, that's what it is. They believe in the Talmud, they believe that Mary was a whore. They believe that Jesus is boiling in a vat of excrement in hell. And they believe that you can have sexual intercourses with children. It's absolutely grotesque.
But I believe you can do that with anything.
Exactly.
Like animals, you name it.
Yeah.
And we're considered Gorum, we're considered cattle or sheep to them. Yeah. But now what we have to understand is like what Nate was saying. These are still people. These are still people that God created. These are still people that God loves. And he wants them to accept his son and change their life.
Right.
And so my hope is I'm not a Zionist. Okay, I was at one point in my life. I was a Zionist. I'm no longer a Zionist. I'm not anti-Israel and I'm not anti-Semitic. But
Right.
what I am is I see a fallen Jewish state that has fallen into depravity. They are not God's chosen people. I'm sorry, they're not. They're just not, because unless they accept the Son, they are not a part of
Correct.
the true Israel.
Yep.
And so, but what should we do? As a Christian, I have to pray for Israel. I have to pray for the peace. I have to pray for them. And guess what? I also have to pray for Palestinians, because guess what? God loves the Palestinian people too.
Right.
He wants those people to be saved as well.
Right.
It's a tough, when we talk about this region and what's going on, it's tough because, there's strong factions on both sides. But when I look at this, I see an oppressor in Israel, and not to say that the Palestinians are all innocent. The Hamas needs to be dealt with. And they're a terrorist organization that needs to be dealt with. Justice needs to fall on them. But there's plenty of innocent Palestinian people, men and women, and especially innocent children, that it's just awful things done to these people. Now, and people will argue, well, they had it coming, or really, they had it coming. Now, I know what happened October 7th, and we can go down that road of why for 9 hours that Israeli forces were told to stand down. If you want to, if whoever wants to debate me, we want to go down that road, we can go down that road. You're talking about Mossad, the most sophisticated intelligence in the world, did not know for 9 hours that these people came across the border. That's hogwash.
Yeah, into a
Not
state.
just that. These people jumped out of an airplane and parachuted. Probably took them like 3 minutes to fall from the sky and down onto and you're just telling me you just stood there and was like, I wonder what that is.
Yeah, right.
No, you knew what was going on before that airplane even took off.
Right.
Nate,
because it wasn't a sophisticated operation or anything. It was broad daylight, and they jumped out of an airplane. And
so one of the things
ground.
that kind of holds people from attacking the United States is how many guns we have, right?
Absolutely.
I would venture, how many people who own guns actually know how to use them? So let's start with that.
Yeah.
So then in the regards of the Palestinian Hamas attacking Israel, that's a whole entire country where every citizen has learned how to handle a gun and knows how to handle a gun and has paid their dues in their military. And to me, that's hilarious that they stood by and watched this happen. It's like the entire citizenry knows how to defend themselves with weapons, and they highly likely probably all had them. Why was this even happening? Why wasn't it dealt with in 30 seconds? Why at a music festival did all these people get run off into the wilderness at a music festival? Are you kidding me? The music festival should have had every kind of security agent ready to rock and roll, ARs locked in solid military guys securing that place, and they weren't there. It's I don't know. I've never personally been to Israel, so I don't know what the security situation is there. But from people that I've known that have gone there, they said it was every square inch was military lockdown security, dudes walking around with full military garb ready to go. So at a moment's notice, anything happened, they were dealing with it instantly. And it's and there's probably crates full of guns and ammo for all the citizens to go and grab if something goes down, that everybody's like, oh, great, we'll just go over to this supply truck and grab some guns and ammo and start filling in the gaps, So for that to go on for 9 hours, it's somehow it's not totally believable.
No, it's not. And I've gotten so annoyed with the amount of stupidity and negligence that it's the biggest cope I've ever heard. It's when there's like, oh, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
That's not and how is that an acceptable excuse?
Right.
If you are in a position of power where your job it affects the safety of people's lives, and
Right.
I mean, you get thrown in jail if you are driving negligent and hurt somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. As soon as you get in behind that
And
car,
so
you
you're
know.
you're telling me that, oh, I just didn't know. I'm sorry that a bunch of people got killed when it was my responsibility to protect them, but I
Didn't
slept
know.
in
Yeah.
that day. My bad. And you don't even
Right.
get fired. You
Right.
don't
Yeah.
get fired.
And
You don't
here,
get fired.
here's the thing. We know for a fact that the documents have been released. Benjamin Netanyahu was sending into effect of, I think, $2 million a month to Qatar, and it might even be more than that, to Qatar to funnel over to Hamas. This is fact. We know this. Why does he do that? He does that to perpetuate a war, to keep the war machine driving. So,
Right.
Because if they don't have anybody to fight, then they become irrelevant.
Right.
Well, right. And then it keeps a war machine. It's weapons because the biggest, I mean, you have the military industrial complex, not for us too, but also for the UK, because their economic situation, they don't export really anything. The UK,
Right.
they import everything, they buy everything. So if you are providing weapons, and that's your biggest basically export is weapons, and Israel is a colony of the crown.
Mm-hmm.
They just rebranded to Israel and called it something that a bunch of Jewish people and Christians and Muslims recognize as a certain type of people, whether they liked them or not. They still recognize them as a people. And after World War II, we had to give them something because they had all this stuff happen to them. And you don't think that was all planned? And
It was
planned.
In fact, that all started before
Israel?
World War II. Yeah.
Yeah.
All of that really was started
1948.
way before Israel. Yeah.
Who created in 1948? Who created the state of Israel? The Rothschilds. That should tell you enough right there.
Yeah, the Rothschilds, along with the Rockefellers, and probably because those families are not a part of the original 13 families. They're cousins and they're related to them, but they're not. Well, no, the Rothschilds.
Yeah, they're part of the 13.
Yeah, they are. The Rockefellers are not, though. The Rothschilds. No, that's King Charles. The royal family is part of 13 families.
Right.
The Rothschilds, I don't believe that they actually are pure bloods.
Yeah, I'm not.
I gotta look at my family tree because we did a 3-part series on this, and I broke down this whole family tree because King Charles, he traces his lineage back to Vlad the Impaler, the son of the dragon.
Yep.
Vlad tracks his lineage back to Hercules himself, which Hercules, what was he? A Nephilim.
Right.
And all these families they all think that they're all called the royals, the royal families.
Right.
And the royal because they have this bloodline that traces back to fallen angels, this celestial bloodline that they don't believe that they believe that since they have this bloodline that goes back to these deities, that they are gods themselves. And that's why they look at everybody as sheep.
Right.
And that's what they truly believe. They believe that they are a part of a bloodline, a birthright, or whatever. When the New World Order comes, they're going to be sitting at the head of the tables.
Right. Yep.
And that's not true. They believe that they're going to be in a position of power when the New World Order comes.
Sure.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't think they will, but that's.
I think if they encant it, like we've seen all the movies, where, Red Skull was trying to incant the opening the pit of hell and bring back, all of these things. We've seen all of these rituals that they play, whether it's in TV
with
movies
CERN.
from TNT or CERN but I mean, I think they put it out in movies where they show you how it works. And I think the concept of Zionism, the concept of these royal families, the concept of New World Order, end of times, they're trying to incantate by finding the book of whatever you want to call it, and they're going to recite all of these chants and all these magical incantations. And then all of a sudden it's going to open a portal of hell, and it's going to put them in total control power, and they're going to change everything. We've seen it in 50 movies, right? 100 movies, hundreds of movies. And I think that kind of incantation, I don't think God's going to allow that to happen, for one. I think they're just going to get eaten by their own dark magic. Because I think at the end of the day,
the entities that they sacrifice to, I think will consume them.
Yeah, exactly.
They're real, and they're just going to consume them.
Right.
I mean,
exactly. Satan won't.
Why did
eat them?
They're the useful idiot.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the thing. They're useful idiots.
Yeah. Yeah, and when we look at the whole Zion thing, there was a bit of study I was doing a little bit on it a few weeks ago, really kind of discovering that a lot of that concept was really started in the late 1800s, where Zionism and the concept of rebuilding the state of Israel in spite of God rebuilding it. So they were coming up with plans and strategies on how to put these people back in that area and begin to kind of through incantation by we're going to do these things. We know that these are prophecies in the Old Testament, so we're going to go make them happen by doing these things. And we have more global power and control in certain individuals that are in charge of things than ever in the history of humanity. So they can begin to start strategizing those things. And that all kind of started really moving a lot of people down there prior to World War II. So a lot of that situation that was happening in Germany that really led into World War II, all of that stuff was really kind of trying to get those people out of the way. They were Jewish people at that time, the self-proclaimed Jewish people. They were all in charge of the financial systems. They were in charge of the banking systems. They were in charge of how money was transacted, most businesses. And they were seeing massive inflation in Germany. And one of, Hitler's situations was how do we deal with this situation? How do we change these kinds of things? And unfortunately, even as a German leader of the country, he didn't have control of that. So he realized that it was in the hands of these kind of Zionist Jews, right? Self-proclaimed Jews. So what they offered was through partnership with other countries in Europe and with the UK, they said, what if we were to recreate this land for them to all go to? And so that whole system with the beliefs and everybody coming together on this concept of Zionism, they decided that was the straight good thing to do. But they weren't just going to let everybody and anybody go down there, because every group of people's got their trailer trash, right? So, we'll take the rich ones, we'll take the good ones, we'll take the ones that are going to make everything better. But all those trailer trash people, yeah, we'll probably just take them over, throw them on a train and gas them outside of town. And so that's really what kind of was the Holocaust. It was a certain amount of people. History says 6 million, but there wasn't even that many millions in all of Europe. There was only about 3.5 million in all of Europe, but history says 6 million died. Here, there, at this point, Holocaust is a Holocaust. When you're killing millions of people, it's a Holocaust. I don't care what's happening. And at that same time, Christians were dying in the neighborhood of 18 million on the other side of Germany, all through the Bolshevik Revolution and taken out of the Romanov family. So there's a lot more death and destruction that was happening on that side than there was happening to the Jewish Holocaust. But we live in a Judeo-Christian culture, I think, led that way. And so our history writes it that way, is that this Jewish Holocaust was the worst thing that ever happened. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a denier that something happened, but I know that looking at some of the history, at first Hitler was not about killing them all off. But at some point, you got to deal with the trash. Is kind of what actually ended up happening. That was the mindset. They said, we'll take the best ones. And in fact, we'll even allow you to like turn in your riches, your property, all these things to Germany, and we'll transfer you to the Palestinian state so that you can have wealth down there. So you end up keeping most of your wealth, but it's just transferred through this structure that they created and moved them to Palestinian state. So here's the other side of that. All of those people went down to the Palestinian state and they moved in with the Palestinian people, the people that were there, right?
Yep.
And those people welcomed them into their houses and said, yeah, come down. This is great. This is awesome. We're helping you build this thing. It's going to be really good. They saw their culture and economy was going to start going through the roof. And one day, families come home, Palestinian families come home to their houses, and the keys are changed. The locks are changed. And it's like, what? And then the Jewish people are like, you better get out of here. We're calling the cops. So they literally squatted on it.
Yep.
And then turned on the people that welcomed them into their houses. And that's pretty evil in and of itself. Yeah. So I think history was written by the people who wanted it to be whitewashed and clean and look like it's all this, that, and the other, and set themselves up as this, like, we're the worst victims of human history, that more of our people died than anybody else. I think there's a lot of Christians that died. There's a lot of people that died for a lot of different things. And really, communism has the record. Right behind it is socialism, which is a variant of communism. They have the record for
history is written by the victors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, history is written by the victors, absolutely. And that's exactly why history has gone down in the way that so many people believe it to be, when the truth was not quite so simple. It wasn't.
And everybody likes to believe that they were the good guys.
Yeah.
You don't think that the Nazi soldiers believed that what they were doing was good?
Right. But how long does it take to turn a person? There's lots of psychological studies that you can find all over YouTube and Facebook that talk about psychological studies to make people do things to people. And one of the ones that I've seen or heard about was one where they asked people off the street to come in and do this test. And they said every time this guy gives a wrong answer, then you have to electrocute him. And then you have to like turn the knob one step up. And interestingly enough, as they were going through these questions and this guy was intentionally getting it wrong, he's not getting electrocuted, but the people that were turning the knob up, right? 70, I think it was 70 some percent. I'd have to go back to the study and look at the actual numbers, but a huge percentage of people,
73%.
Yeah. 250 volts. So like, even though they're not sending electricity to this guy, but he's reacting like they are, and he's giving wrong answers intentionally. The test was to see if this person off the street would come in, answer questions, and do what they were told. And they were done. They did what they were told, 73%, as you said, up to 250 volts. And like more than 50 of them went all the way. More than 50% went all the way to the maximum voltage. So it's like,
and that's just regular people, not even like government people who like.
Right.
Yeah.
How many times have you heard from? And I'm not saying anything bad about police officers. I respect what they do, and we couldn't be a society without them. But when you have a government who is telling your law enforcement off, and I'm not talking about us or any particular. This is just a scenario. Say you have your law enforcement officers. You have a government with evil intentions telling your law enforcement officers to do a certain thing. How many people do you believe are just going to say, I was just following orders?
Right.
Yeah, I was just doing my job. True. It wasn't me that was doing. I was just doing my job. It wasn't my decision, and all this stuff. And that's good. Evil thrives when good people do nothing.
Right. Yeah.
And we saw this. We saw this in 2020. How many people, as soon as they said, this vaccine was produced in record time, did not even have animal or human testing, and people were standing in line. Give it to me. Give it to me.
Yeah.
Well, you put a fear.
See somebody doing something wrong, turn your neighbors in. And how many people were like, "Oh, I'm all for that. I'll turn my neighbors in. Hell yeah." I've been trying to get the HOA to take them out.
That was a multi that whole thing was an experiment on a whole multiple levels
Oh yeah.
of seeing how
Absolutely.
compliant we have the people at, seeing how much of a stronghold we have on the media.
Right.
And then on top of that, what we're putting in the vaccine, how
Yep.
that's going to benefit the depopulation
yeah.
agenda.
And I'm
Yeah,
a pureblood, by the way.
over
I'm
10
a
million.
pureblood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
me
didn't.
too.
And
Yeah.
Pure blood.
because
Yeah.
that virus was created, and
In a lab.
the vaccine was, I mean, there's so
The
much stuff in
Epstein
that
the
vaccine.
Epstein files have it in it. The Epstein
Yeah.
files have where they knew that there was a that they were going to do this whole plan with a sickness, a disease. It's in there. It's in the Epstein files. They were talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should search it up. It's pretty interesting. I know, and it's funny. I suspected a couple things. I have a little bit of a theory, slightly different, where I think that they just overhyped the quote unquote flu that was going to go out. They'd already done COVID-1 a bunch of years prior in Hong Kong, right? Tested it there. And so then when they came out with the COVID-19, and there's a whole lot of reasons why it was called COVID. There's suspects of like why the letters are in this specific order. 19 that wasn't necessarily due to the year 2019, but it had something else to do with the variation of it. But that it was just
They're all
another
about their
variation of kind
symbolism.
of a standard flu. Yeah. But the real intention of it at the end of the day was to roll out this nanotech technology vaccination.
I was just about to say
and
that.
to
Yeah.
put it into
With
so
the
many
energy.
more people and really do this kind of globalized experiment, which, hey, if half the goyim die, it doesn't really matter, right? So it's just kind of depopulating the country, the world anyway, to a certain degree. It'll get kind of flushed through all of the excess deaths through all the different countries. People won't really notice it. And when you look at excess deaths records across the country globally, you don't even see any death change at all. Clear into 2021, it doesn't really change. But once you're into mid 2021, 22, that thing's spiking and it's staying high, and it has stayed high clear into 2026 now. That's so many excess deaths due to cancers and, turbo cancers and blood clots and all this kind of psycho crazy stuff that is programmable through the nanotech.
Yeah.
And so one of the ways that I've fought it, I don't have nanotech in me because I'm still pure blood, but one of the ways that I was fighting it and fighting with a lot of people that had long COVID and success was to talk to them about getting on nicotine. So they found studies at Harvard and various places where they were doing studies on long COVID sufferers that had problems with that, whether it was from the COVID itself or due to some of the side effects of the getting all the shots and the jabs, right? So you throw somebody who's got long COVID onto a nicotine patch, grab a couple patches on Amazon, try it with your kids if you got long COVID situations. 6 days later, all of those COVID symptoms, those long COVID symptoms are gone. And then right behind that, do a heavy metal detox, and you'll be able to flush all of that nanotech out. But the nicotine patch, once it goes in, they're showing nicotine on microscope where they're seeing here's a vaccination. They can see all the little square nanotech bots running around doing all their thing. And as soon as you drop a drop of nicotine on there, those little bots just pop apart and start fragmenting into little bricks and circuits, and they all start popping apart and dying. And so I'd encourage you, if you did ever get vaccination, jump on nicotine. And frankly, every bit of all of the sicknesses that we have, whether it's COVID-19, whether it's the flu, a lot of these viral poison snake bite types of things that we get, they're all going to be aphilic or hyperphilic towards the nicotine receptor that's on every cell in our body. And so when you start doing nicotine, you want to smoke it, that's great, but you're going to get addicted to the 500 other chemicals in smoking and any kind of nicotine product. But if you're doing a clean nicotine patch or doing nicotine or tobacco salves, things like that, that nicotine is going to displace all of the sicknesses, the COVID, the flu, all of these kinds of things. Follow Dr. Artis. If you guys want to know any more about this, turn to Facebook, go to Dr. Artis get his book, COVID-19 Lies. That one, I mean, I'll promote it because, dude, it like changed my life. And the thing that, don't do nasal swabs. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes along with this because they're putting all that tech in there, right? And it's like direct delivering these kinds of things. So you want to get into nicotine patches. I wear one on my elbow every day. And I'm a pureblood and I didn't get into it, but I can tell you it's reduced every time I do get a cold or a sickness. I just went through probably whatever crud is floating around and I was done with it in 2 days. I didn't take any drugs. I took zero medicine. I literally went in, I was at an event, in fact, and it was like the end of the event. We just got done with everything and I wasn't flying out to the next afternoon, evening. And so I just went back, got under the covers and just burned it out. And so 3 or 4 nights of just burning out this crud that's going around. Everybody's saying it's like the next big whatever COVID kind of thing that's going on. I didn't take anything. I just burned it with letting my body burn it out. So I think I probably hit 102 degrees fever, which don't be scared of fever. Just let the fever do its thing. You're not going to get any kind of brain damage or anything from fever until you're at 106 or more. So no human viral infection has ever caused somebody to go over 106. And that's when you have problems. No normal human sickness is ever going to take you there. If something is taking you there, it's likely a snake bite or it's some other kind of poison that's been put in your system that will overdrive your heat. So all that to be said, I know and I believe fully because I've experienced it myself and I've seen the results in other people that have taken nicotine, fixed their stuff. I've seen nicotine dissolve those nanobots. I've seen it change people's lives, and that's a big thing. And then just get on parasite cleanses every year. Do it 2 times a year. There's a couple of ways to do it. And, you start to really fix all these human ailments and you do it without medicine. It's pretty kind of cool that God like created our bodies to be so amazing, right?
Well, food is supposed to be our medicine, truly.
It is, absolutely. Yeah. And God put all of this solves for our human body on this planet. And Big Pharma is like, well, I can make a chemical version of it and make $1 bazillion and become, a mega billionaire, create huge, crony capitalist companies to basically put people into sickness and keep them there. And I just think that that's absolutely of Satan in and of itself as well.
And they train doctors to treat symptoms instead of cure.
Yeah, exactly. Because he keep making money. I mean, I watched my dad die because he was on 60, 80 stupid drugs every day. It was so much medical malpractice that I watched my dad go from about 45 till when he finally passed away at 71 that I can't even stand it. I was actually trying to convince my mom to do a medical malpractice suit against a lot of those doctors, and she just couldn't bring herself to do it. She was like, I think she said at one point, she's like, well, what if, I need those doctors one day? And it's like, the problem is like this. There's a situation that's super obvious, and everybody's like, well, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to do that. It's like, this is why it perpetuates. This is why it continues to go on.
And that's
like, are you kidding me right now?
That is the power of programming. And people don't understand how powerful and effective programming is.
Right.
If you program stuff right through a population, you can still get them to do what you want to do, even if they know the truth on it.
Right.
Because they don't want to believe the truth.
Yeah.
If you can get it's much easier. People will go the path of least resistance.
Right.
Especially if you have a population of people who live comfortable lives, like people in America. We live comfortably for the majority of people, and compared to the rest of the world. So, and that's the thing that back in, I want to say 1500s and stuff, they really, the monarchs really learned was that, and kind of not even all the way up to World War I, I'm pretty sure, was that if you had a population like kings and queens ruled with absolute authority, and if you kept your population of people in such terrible condition, they will revolt against you. because they have nothing to lose.
Right.
If you gave them a taste of what it's like to live comfortably, you give them something to lose, and they will fall in line because they don't want to lose it.
Right.
That's right.
And that's the thing that we live in today. And I've got to pay my bills. I've got to do this. I don't want to.
I got to pay my taxes. Oh my gosh! Even there's.
Don't even get me started on taxes because that's just the fact that people think that paying taxes is something to be proud of. I'm just like, no, I'm sorry.
You guys ever follow Chase Hughes? You heard of that name?
I haven't.
I think I've heard of that name.
Yeah, Chase Hughes. He's on YouTube. I don't think he's a Christian guy. I'm not going to really go off and say he's got everything together, but he really talks a lot about tribalisms and the kinds of things that kind of keep people in line of things. He's got some pretty interesting takes on a lot of stuff. Interesting thing that he keeps bringing up, though, and a lot of the things that I keep seeing is he uses a lot of cultural language that he believes are like these ancient ritualistic statements. And one of them he keeps bringing up is as above, so below. And I'm like, oof. Whoa, okay, brother. You might be on the little bit of the edge there, but it's good to hear what he's talking about because you're kind of hearing that there are probably 70, 80% of his truth are truths that are actually truths, God's principles. But then it's disguised in this kind of little bit of Luciferian trickery. But it's a lot of that cultural, like how to mind control people, how to hear and understand what's going on, how to, influence people with, not just persuasion, the old adages of persuasion, but like through understanding of mind control and these kinds of things. And so he's got some pretty good takes. I actually enjoy listening to him a lot, talking about the different kinds of things and why people do what they do. And he gets into that where it's like really about tribalism. There's these protectionist things that all of us do. There, we want to be a part of the clan or the crew or the tribe, right? We don't want to be excommunicated. We still want to be able to, buy things and have a job. And so there's things that we won't do because we want to keep our job. I mean, COVID was a good example of that. Again, like get the shot if you want to keep your job. And everybody's like, oh man, well, I can't afford to not pay my bills, so I probably ought to go get the job. Get the jab and follow through with it so I can keep my job and keep paying bills and people will still accept me in the tribe. Well, I guess I'll put on a mask because everybody's doing it, and
that's how you get doctors to fall in line. You make them go through 10 years of schooling and hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, you're going to push what I'm telling you to push, or I'll take that little license that you spent half your life and went into debt for away from you. What are you going to do? You think you're going to start over?
Right.
Or are you going to go be a roofer now? Or no. And the same thing with like kind of with government. People don't go into government. People. I think this is my personal opinion, the correct way I feel like government should be viewed as a selfless service. It's not something you go in to become a millionaire. Right. It's not something that you go into to be there forever. You go do your time and you get out.
Right.
Yeah.
But now we figured out, even after we started all over in 1776, slowly every generation figure out, okay, well, hey, this is a cushy job. And I got a lot of power. If I sit here and say the right things, I don't have to do anything.
Right.
And then your goal is become, okay, how long can I sit here and collect money that is not mine? And now they can have it in, we have a printing press now where you can just print as much money as you want to. You need $2 billion. What you need $100 billion? Get the printer up and running. We'll start printing it.
But
so then, what's your taxes?
So I can take some of that money for you.
Yeah. Or hey, you do me a favor. I'm going to give this $100,000 to you, and I'm going to set up this little system where you pay all my companies to serve. And it's just it's how creative can we get the laundering to go?
Right.
And then you think, okay, what are our taxes for? Why are taxes so important to the government when they can just print whatever they want? Well, taxes keep everybody in line. They keep the next generation from getting the last generation's wealth and carrying it on, because that's how the royals keep their wealth through each generation. If you can, with how the taxes are lined up, if you whatever all the money that you earn in your life, pass it to the next generation, and then it's gone in 2 generations. If you don't spend it, you just put it under your pillow, it's gone in 2 generations.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how much it is, because it's all about percentages. So,
Well, as a business
then-
owner, I got some real interesting takes on this if you want to get into it.
yeah, let's get into it.
All right. So, yeah. Taxes. So, as a business owner, I've always watched that I pay taxes. And if you're a really good business owner and you're really holding it to the line, you're paying quarterlies, right? So, you pay these quarterly taxes. So, what they want is they basically want you to self proclaim that you're making money. So, you're going to send in self kind of revealed that, oh, I made enough money. I'm going to send you some money to the government to pay my quarterlies so that I don't get this big giant bill at the end of the year. Well, a convenient part about that, if you're really playing the game that way, is that you end up forking over a lot more money than you need to. And the government's going to do everything they can to keep it and not actually give it back to you. So the real strategy in business is to try to keep as much money as you can. And the reason that taxes and tax incentives and everything work inside of businesses is to give reasons for businesses, incentivize a business to create jobs, to create momentum and begin to get the economy to move, right? So the economy doesn't move when everybody just holds their money in their big giant McDuck, Scrooge McDuck vault. It doesn't, that's not the economy. It doesn't, money is velocity. So money, when it's moving, that's how the economy works. And then when it moves is when it's buying things, when it's exchanging hands, when it's trading for goods, like for like, value for value. I give you $100 in value, I get $100 in a product or a service or whatever I need to be done. That's trade. And on its fundamental rudimentary core, that value trade is only happening between me as the producer and that person as the consumer. Government loves to get in and take a portion of it and take a portion of it. So they look for every place where money is going to potentially transact, and they're going to stick their grubby mitts into it as an authority. And again, they have the tyranny of power. So they step into your life. So there are business structures that are put in place that allows you to create money and wealth systems through structures of businesses, multiple structures of businesses. It has to do with trust. It has to do with different types.
That's what I'm working on right now, is a trust.
Yep, good. And it has to do with like building up your corporations, building up different LLCs, which are limited liability corporations, but then establishing an actual corporate entity. And in the United States, corporations are people, right? So you have a social security number. Don't put all of your business transactions and your money on your social security number. Put it on your business's social security number, which is an EIN. And so an EIN establishes that corporation as a person, and corporations are people. And so they give incentives to corporations to produce and keep the money velocity moving. But through that process, you're going to come out with excess. And so what they want to do is they want to give you through the process of deductions and other kinds of things. Lots of people who don't understand it call it loopholes. They're not. They're standard deductions to incentivize you to continue to make money. More money in my hand as an entrepreneur business owner is going to affect way more people than money going up to the government. And the government does know that. And so when we look at government and taxes, federal government operates on 99% of their own printing and other ways of taxation. Federal government's taxation money that we all pay to the federal government, because if you think about it, probably close to 95+% of people in the United States get their money back from the federal government. There's only very few people that don't. So you look at Elon Musk, you look at some of these big businesses and big corporations and individuals, they're paying a lot of taxes. They're not going to get a deduction or a return, right? So that's just not going to happen. But everybody else who's working on an hourly, even all the way up to $150,000 a year, they're going to get a return back because they're an hourly worker. So that return helps go back into the velocity of money again, right? So in business, what you want to do is you want to set yourself up with these different structures. You want to set yourself up to be able to control as many assets as you possibly can while you are personally invisible. So money isn't about amassing things to my name. Nate Webb can be the poorest person in the world. You look at my tax returns and they're like, how are you only $30,000 a year? And it's like, yep, that's all that I am personally worth. But I control hundreds of millions of dollars eventually when I build my businesses out. I retain control of that money. And so when you look at Rockefellers, you look at Carnegies, you look at a lot of these old, what people would call robber baron types of families, they created these systems within the economies that they developed, right? So those guys were heavily influential on global economies, central banks, all of those kinds of things. And they built the structures to keep the business systems and the velocity of money moving. So when the velocity of money is moving, everybody's happy. But you want to control that money all the way. So let's say in a couple of different ways, you can look at cash flow quadrants. Cash flow quadrants, if Robert Kiyosaki talks a lot about cash flow quadrants, where you take, you go out and earn $100. As an employee, I get taxed on that before I get it. I probably have to pay a fee. There's some other things that I end up with. So I'm losing a bunch of money right as soon as I go out and trade my time for money. I end up paying my taxes immediately, right off the top. And then if I get to keep the $100 out of my $500 check, I can go spend that on stuff, and I'm going to pay taxes on the things that I buy. And I'm going to pay taxes on the things that I own over a 12-month period too. So I'm going to pay property taxes on stuff also. Or you look at it like a business. A business doesn't pay taxes first. A business pays taxes last. And that's also after all of your deductions, all of your business strategies, and everything else. So what you want to do is pay your taxes last and make sure that you can control your money from the time that you get that dollar to the time that you give away the 5 cents of that dollar at the end of its life cycle. And you do that through bigger, larger corporate structures. If you want to do some crazy searching on Google, just look up things like trifecta, business structures, things like that. You'll start to find some of these models that exist out there where it was developed by the Rockefellers, Carnegies, and others who built the system of our economy to allow them to control it. They use things like bank on yourself. They use things like whole life insurance. So when you go to get life insurance, it's always like a term life insurance. That's what everybody wants you to buy. Term life insurance is nothing. But if you can buy whole life insurance, that's a bank investment account that will grow in the stock market and through the investments that you do with that. And you can pull and draw upon it at any time whenever you want. So smart business guy, smart business person is going to go in and say, hey, I just had a kid. They're literally 6 months old. I'm going to put them on my payroll of one of my businesses. I'm going to pay them $3,000 a year. By the time they're 18, they're going to have amassed probably close to $250,000, give or take. And if that business that rolls on the strategy of compounding interest, by the time that kid turns 25, he's going to have between $2 and $4 million in the bank that he can use for whatever he wants. He can start a business. He can create a cash flow asset. He can create these kinds of things. And you teach him to not be the one that owns it, but you want to be the one that controls it. And so then you can perpetuate that. If you look at the Rockefeller model, it's all built upon the family members all are instantly, as soon as they're born, they're given a trust fund or a whole life insurance policy. If they use it in their life or they don't, and they're all beneficiaries of all the different corporations in the trust. So they get to live in the houses and drive the cars and do all the things. And all the businesses are self-perpetuating of each other, right? So if I own a bunch of cars and I also own a service station and my family members work there, I'm fixing my own cars. That dollar is staying within my ecosystem, right? So I'm transferring that dollar around my system. I'm controlling it all the way to the bottom. And all I have to do is give away 5% at the end to keep all of my stuff through all of my own foundations, through all of my C Corps, through all of my business structures. Let's say at the end of a kid's life, they die and that whole life insurance policy gets paid out. Well, where does it pay out? Right back to the trust. which then gets reinvested right back into the structure system again. So that's how wealth is perpetuated. And I gave you a super brief, probably wrong in a couple of places, but I gave you a super brief overview of how that whole structure works. And it is a secret of the fallen, like to go with you guys' podcast name. It's a secret of the fallen on how this works. And most people are never going to hear that secret. They're never going to understand it, and they're never going to search it and find out how it really works. And most people in the world,
it's complicated. It's complicated, and
it's intentionally complicated to make normal people go, "Nope, I'm not going to do that. It's too crazy. I don't. It's too much of a pain in the butt." But when you do it,
well, not only that, and you have people that are just. You have so many distractions out in the world for people. Like people. We've created a society of people who just want to be mindless. They want to scroll.
Well, that's what Rockefeller wanted. Rockefeller he created the school system, the educational system, and controls it because he said, I want an America full of employees. I don't want an America full of entrepreneurs.
And again, that's because money is velocity. Like if he amassed a ton of money, but wasn't giving it to employees to keep them consuming, it doesn't work. Right? So if everybody started figuring this out and they started amassing money, does the velocity of money slow down and stop? I know a lot of people, my family members included, that have like over their lives gained up a giant, glittering lake of money and stuck it in their Scrooge McDuck vault, and they sit there and gaze upon it. And it's like, that money is worthless because not only is it rapidly losing its value, the same dollar in the World War II today is not even worth 2 cents, that same dollar from World War II. So this thing is a rapidly depreciating valued asset. So keeping it in a bank, in a vault, and stopping its velocity is the stupidest thing you can possibly do. But you can buy appreciating assets like properties and other kinds of appreciating assets, cash flowing businesses. This is how wealth is built. And when you do that kind of stuff, then you're participating in the velocity of money. And yes, you're right in the sense that Rockefeller created that to kind of oppress the people, but it created an economy system that moves money, velocity. It transacts extremely fast, and consumerism does that. And so Christians also have this big problem, like, I hate consumerism. Hippies have that. There's a lot of people, even lefties and liberals, have problems with consumerism, that's the worst thing that ever happened. We got to get rid of capitalism. I'll tell you what, capitalism saved your life a couple years ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we're the biggest consumer in the world. No one can touch us.
If they understand it and understand how it works. But I'm sure so we're at 2 hours and 23 minutes. I want to continue this conversation because I love talking about money, but we don't hop off soon. I won't. This file is going to be too big to save.
Right? Yeah. No worries.
I got you. Well, Nate, I appreciate you coming on board with us and discussing these issues and just pouring out your heart to us. I think we all have strong feelings about these issues, and we want us as a nation, as a people, we want to go in the right direction, and that's following Jesus. And I think that we really proclaim that tonight. So, and we're, like you said, Nate, we're trying to unveil the secrets of the fallen, and I think we exposed a lot of secrets tonight for sure.
Yeah, I think the biggest secret that's really kind of cool is how much Jesus is the answer. So
absolutely,
thank you guys for being 100%. On the same plane as that, and keep doing what you're doing because you guys are killing it. This is great. I love it.
Well, we appreciate it, and thank you for your support.
So one of our listeners reached out to me yesterday, and she was listening to the Antarctica one, and she said she's a painter. Apparently, she said it inspired her to do a painting like an Antarctica portal.
Oh, cool!
So shout out! Hey, I'm apologize, I forgot your name, but I just reminded me. If you finish that painting, DM me and send it to us, and then we'll definitely share it and and promote your work and everything. So
Heck yeah.
that was pretty cool. I thought that was really
Yeah.
cool.
That is awesome. Awesome.
But
Well,
definitely enjoyed it, Nate. And
Me too.
yeah, we should make this. I don't know what your schedule's like, but if you want to hop on with us anytime, let us know.
absolutely. You're welcome back anytime, brother. Anytime.
Right. Yeah, let me know. Let me know. My schedule's kind of crazy. I got, events and various things, but just hit me up a couple days ahead of time and we'll figure it out.
Now, are you in Colorado right now?
Yeah, Colorado right now. And then I'll probably be here for maybe another 6 or 8 weeks. But I got a cruise on my anniversary in April, so I'm getting back to Florida for that. Yeah.
There you go, man.
It's hit or miss the rest of the year. We'll just kind of see how God lays it out. This is the year of daily bread for me, man. So I'm just taking every day as God's laying it out. I'm looking to Him every morning when I get up and just saying, hey, show me the next steps, and let me just follow in your ways. Let me be obedient to your directions. And I've seen blessings this year since I've been doing that. So I'm thankful for that every day.
Well, Saturday, if everything goes right, Saturday, my grandbaby will be here.
Congrats.
Yeah,
Very
they're
cool.
gonna induce my daughter. That's right. Yeah, little baby Asher will be here. He's already 6 pounds 3 ounces. So they're gonna go ahead and induce her. She's had some complications, and the doctor says, the baby's probably at 36, 37 weeks. He's healthy. The doctor said, let's go ahead and get him out. So
nice.
She'll go in Saturday, and hopefully within a few hours, we'll get to meet baby Asher.
That's awesome.
That's awesome,
Congratulations.
man.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, I expect pictures.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, all right, fellas, we appreciate it so much. And for all the people out there in the world of podcasting, join us in the portal next time.
Right on.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time, y'all. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was tons of fun.
That was all. Yeah, that was a good one. That was a really good one.